After using the same computer for almost the entire life of my channel, it started to show its age a little bit. Applications would take a little bit to open, my SSD somehow only had 10 gigs of storage left and I really couldn't figure out why, and I wasn't exactly satisfied with the temperatures and overclock that my CPU was running at. So I decided to let Byron take a stab at upgrading my PC with some of the components that we had laying around, some of which increased performance and some of which just because we could. The performance specs of my PC are an Intel Core i5-3570K that is overclocked, a GTX 960, and 8 gigs of RAM. And I know those specs aren't great, but they are justifiable. The first reason is that I don't game on my PC anymore, so I don't really push those specs like I would if I was playing games often. And the second reason is that Byron edits most of the videos on the channel now, so I don't need a rendering workhorse as my PC. It just needs to be able to handle the occasional render that I will do myself. And I also want to thank Kingston and Corsair for sending out some of the products today. It's much appreciated. Believe it or not, the biggest bottleneck in my computer was the SSD. It was the boot drive, and it was a Samsung 840 series 128GB. And as I said, it only had 10 gigabytes left somehow, so I would put stuff on like footage, delete it, and then put it back on. And it just got very tedious and annoying. So I decided to get a faster drive with more storage. We swapped that Samsung one with a Kingston HyperX Savage 240GB SSD capable of 560 megabytes per second read speeds and 530 megabytes per second write speeds. And I know that just throwing out the old Samsung drive would have been a complete waste, so I just repurposed it as a storage drive. Right below the HyperX drive, we also installed a SanDisk Ultra 2 240GB SSD with 550 megabytes per second read speeds and 500 megabytes per second write speeds. The SanDisk SSD is a little bit slower than the Kingston drive, and I partitioned it as a storage drive. And I don't exactly know how I'm going to split up the drives, like what items I'm going to put on each drive, but it's going to go in order of priority. Since the Kingston is the fastest, SanDisk is a teeny bit slower, and the Samsung is then again a little teeny bit slower. So the most important things will on the Kingston, and then I'll just tier down from there. Easily the most frustrating part of this upgrade was installing the Corsair H100i GTX water cooler. Uninstalling the Noctua NHD14 that was already in the build was the first challenge that left Byron with bloody knuckles from the sharp fins. And yes, I make him do everything that's difficult or dangerous. Once the old air cooler was out, we realized that the radiator wouldn't fit perfectly because the 6-pin CPU connector stuck too far out. After some fiddling around with the screws, we just ended up mounting the radiator to the top of the case using the holes that were punched out for the fans instead of the actual mounting points, but it works. Next, we pulled out the Noctua fans from that air cooler and used them to replace the stock fans that came installed in the Fractal Design R4. This actually made a significant improvement in the acoustics, which I was very happy to see. I'm really not that picky with noise, but nonetheless, quiet is better. And the last component we upgraded was the power supply. We replaced the Rosewill 650 watt unit with the Corsair RM650 80 plus gold fully modular PSU and tidied everything up with some nice cable management. Now that everything was installed and ready to go, we went about wiping all the drives and installing a fresh version of Windows 10 and all of my daily driver apps. And it wasn't running like that slowly before, but there's just something really satisfying about having a fresh copy of Windows installed. Overall, I am very happy with the way it turned out. This wasn't a complete overhaul by any means, and it really doesn't increase the performance that much other than having that water cooler to cool my overclock, but it was rather just a simple fix to up my productivity by giving my PC a little bit of a refresh. Thank you for watching, subscribe to see more content, and as always, stay classy.